Alex Halen, who is the Global Paid Search and Programmatic Manager, was brought into Dow Jones to do. He's originally from Mercury Media, but he came in to drive these paid media efforts across all and knit together these different channels of search, native, programmatic display, audio, and video. Please welcome Alex.
So I've already heard a few things that kind of tie into what I'm going to be talking about this morning. The first, or specifically what Steve mentioned earlier about reimagining. And this is really a journey about reimagining our experience and reimagining our advertising. So I'm going to be talking about how WSJ was able to pivot our media strategy to put the customer at the forefront of our marketing efforts. But before we started on our strategy, we needed to clearly define our mission of hitting 3 million Dow Jones members, with the majority coming from the Wall Street Journal, and to lay down the vision of WSJ to be the world's foremost membership for the ambitious. So today I'm going to talk about two of the key initiatives that helped us get there: developing and implementing our dynamic customer-focused paywall, and mimicking that strategy offsite through our paid media. So, to be the world's foremost membership for the ambitious, we knew our offering had to feel connected, personal, and exclusive. But with our paywall being in place for over 20 years, it wasn't connected, personal, or exclusive. It was content-led. And if we look at the current paywall models in market, metered, freemium, and hard, we see that there's one really big issue with all of them. And it's a one-size-fits-all approach that treats each customer equally and is dictated by content. So, again, to be the world's foremost membership for the ambitious, we said everything we do has to be focused on the customer. So we decided to create something new, something personal and dynamic that could open and close based on advertising demand and really allow each individual user to get their own personal experience. So the first step was to understand when a subscriber subscribed. And we did this by looking at 2 years' worth of data ran through a predictive model. And we were able to pinpoint specific parts of the day, parts of the week, where people were coming through. But since WSJ is a dual revenue business, we also needed a view on advertising demand. So again, that's what was fed into our paywall model, and that's how our paywall model was born. We were able to now open and close our paywall based on subscription data and on advertising demand. We were able to open the site during key acquisition times and lock it down for, we were able to lock down the site during key acquisition times and open it up for ad sales when we saw a customer's propensity to subscribe was low. And that's where we were about 18 months ago. Our paywall model was in place, and then we decided to challenge ourselves by adding more layers of personalization into our paywall. And that was done with the introduction of our intelligence layer. Our intelligence layer is powered by knowing more about our potential customer. So we looked at historical patterns of who was more likely to subscribe. And through a fusion of first and third-party variables, over 65 of them, we now have a better understanding of how people interact with their product and who's more likely to make a purchase. Our next challenge was to implement a tech solution that could calculate a propensity score in real time and feed that propensity score into our on-site DMP powered by CSense to provide an appropriate experience for each individual user. And our paywall classifies visitors to WSJ.com into 3 buckets depending on their likelihood to subscribe: cold, medium, and hot, and feeds them a paywall experience that aligns with that propensity bucket. So in short, we sample content to those in a cold bucket while locking down the site and serving a hard paywall to those in a hot propensity bucket. We also have a guest pass that allows visitors to sign in to sample content for a certain amount of time to help increase their likelihood to subscribe. So if we see that you're on a mobile device and you've been to our site 5+ times and you read our market section, you're from a high-income area, you're highly educated, and you also read our opinions content, we see that you're someone who's more likely to subscribe, and then we serve you the hard paywall. And that's really the logic behind how our paywall operates. So how did we take that and start applying it to our media practices off-site? First, it's worth noting that in 2016, we made the decision to bring our media buying in-house. Why? Because we knew getting closer to our data meant getting closer to our customer. And we've been able to work together as a team to help grow our membership base. We've also been able to build a strong relationship with our editorial teams so we can help support them as news stories break. And by examining the paywall logic, by examining the 65+ data variables, we now have a better understanding of how customers move through our acquisition funnel. And we can now apply those learnings through our paid media to really help customers drive customers down through our funnel. And one of the big ways we do that is through content promotion. And one of the ways that we identify where customers sit within our acquisition funnel is their frequency to WSJ.com. We also look at variables like their device and day parting, but the big one is their frequency. So again, we can really concentrate on content promotion and hitting people that have not been to the site that often. We can hit them with content to help drive them down through the funnel. And this is a cross-channel approach that takes place in sponsored email, native, display, video, audio, programmatic, and paid search. And by applying the wave approach, where the wave represents on how we place our spend, we can more effectively allocate our budgets. So during non-sale periods, we focus on awareness and consideration and getting prospects back to site to fill our top and mid funnels. But during sales periods, this flips and focuses more on direct response with the CTA to join, while still allocating a portion of our budget to content to help fill our top funnels. So I actually added one more slide in here that's not being represented, but this really helped us to grow our mid-funnel audience. And our mid-funnel we see as more valuable prospects. So really growing our mid-funnel was a key initiative of this, so that when we do start promoting our offer, it allows us to start harvesting the people that are in the mid-funnel, and then while we do still place that little bit of spend in content during our sales periods, we're still adding new members to our prospecting funnel. So the result of all of this is, in FY18, we saw a 25% increase in orders coming from our paid media channels, while seeing a 4x increase in conversion rate coming from content, in spite of FY17 being an election year. So, suffice to say, the Wall Street Journal now has more paying members than ever before, and we've hit our goal of hitting 3 million Dow Jones members. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alex. I've got loads, but Alex promises me that whenever he does this, he gets loads of questions, so the bar is high. Yeah.
Thank you. So when, I guess mainly in the commerce space, so when people like Amazon or others introduce kind of variable pricing models or other more heavily personalized models around pricing specifically. They've gotten a lot of pushback. I think it still works for them, so they do it. Have you received a lot of pushback from your users or audience in general on this kind of variable nature of the paywall?
Well, so one thing about the Wall Street Journal is it's a premium product and it's relatively expensive compared to what else is out there. So if we have something that's just a hard paywall, it's hard for us to sample that content to new users. So why would somebody come to the Wall Street Journal that's never experienced our content and say, all right, I'm gonna spend $35, $40 a month on your product? So one of the things about the paywall is, again, it doesn't take the freemium or metered approach. It really looks at, again, the 65 plus variables that we plug into it and determines who's ready and who still needs some warming up. So if you come to our site for the first time and you're not familiar with our content, why would you sign up? Maybe you're a student who was told by their professor, but in that case, we have student pricing, so it's reasonable for them. So to answer your question of have we gotten pushback with our variable nature, I don't think so, or we haven't, because it's hitting customers when they're ready to buy. So it treats each customer individually and gauges where they are in the prospecting funnel and starts locking down the site when we see that they're ready to buy. So of course there's going to be some people that say, hey, I used to get that content for free and now I don't. But if we've seen them come to the site a bunch of times and we know that they're from in this demo, and that's the nature of our business. We're a subscription business, so we have to start locking down the site for them to make a purchase.
Hi, Todd Shulman with the Christian Science Monitor. I'm curious, you mentioned the acquisition strategies that you're doing, the wave approach and using CSENT and that sort of thing with the propensity score. What are you doing on the flip side? Are you doing similar wave approaches for when somebody churns, when somebody leaves?
Great question. Yes. Do I have it on here? Yeah. So this is kind of just representative up until somebody subscribes, and then we start hitting them with the engagement aspect. But we do align our engagement approach with the acquisition wave approach. So, for example, if we have an intro offer of $12 for 12 months, or 12 weeks, I'm sorry, we will see that there's an increase in churn at the end of that 12 weeks. So we right away, we'll start hitting them with engagement content to make sure that they see the value of our product and to make sure that they are getting what they're paying for. So $12 for 12 weeks is a low intro price compared to our full-priced product. But they need to still, if they're not using it, they're not going to be paying for it. They're going to start canceling at the end of their intro or even earlier. So after somebody subscribes, we align our engagement push and our retention push with where they fell in where we're promoting our sales. So we will push out things for app downloads and newsletters, but the big one is how we serve them our content. And if we see that they're engaging with something like markets or opinions, we will push more markets and opinions to them while they're in their intro period to make sure that they see the value in the product and they stay a subscriber.
I wanted to draft off that to talk about content and how you're handling that. Is this all dynamically created and automated? Is there anything else that's going on in-house? And across, I mean, you talked about several channels. So you've got SEO, you've got social, you've got programmatic display, video. Talk a little bit about how the creative development breaks down across some of those.
Awesome. Yeah, so one of the ways that we handle the dynamic nature of content is through curating a series of RSS feeds. And we have those RSS feeds connected to our content promotion efforts. So that takes place through programmatic display and native specifically. Through something like social, it's kind of church and state. I know that word has been, or that phrase has been said a couple times, but we have a separate team for organic social and paid social. So the organic social will post something, and if it starts getting traction and starts resonating with our audience, then our paid social team will start boosting it to make sure that it gets as wide of a reach with an appropriate audience as possible. But again, through native and programmatic display, we have a series of RSS feeds that we push out. So we have dynamic creative through display that rotates through the top headlines of the day. Or we have a markets RSS feed that we will push out to our audience that has an affinity for markets news. And it's either the top, like the trending of the day, or the most read, or just the stories in the past week that have really picked up the most traction. So there is a dynamic aspect of the content promotion that we're doing. We can also individually, if something's not getting fed through the RSS feed, we can individually pick that out and start boosting it or promoting it ourselves through display and social and native.
And these are individually targeted as well. So you're looking at specific content usage and then targeting content.
We have, yes, we have buckets of users that have an affinity for certain sections. So again, if there's a markets, if we know somebody's interested in markets, we can promote markets content to them. So on both sides of the spectrum, we on the acquisition side and the engagement side, we can say this person reads this type of content. We know it's interesting to them. We can promote it to them.
Is this helping you at all engage the perennial challenge for newspaper brands especially and legacy media brands of demographics, and getting and how you're able to target and get that younger demographic that seems to be avoiding the legacy brands, especially newspaper-based brands?
So one of the ways that we've been helping skew our audience to a younger demo is, again, through student subscriptions and really building that trust from early on in their career. A lot of help that we have are from professors that are saying, like, we should be using this product in class. But we also do have lifestyle and sports content that does resonate more with a younger audience. So we're not saying that younger audiences don't read political content or don't read markets content, but we do have content that does seem to resonate more with younger audiences. So by targeting on like a demo perspective for age bands, we do see that lifestyle content does resonate more with them.
And this is actually moving the needle. I'm really curious about how programmatic channels can drive a younger demographic and if it's really effective. I mean, it sounds as if the default most effective is still that sort of age-old Wall Street Journal leveraging of the younger demographic through their college experience and getting them into the brand early. But I'm curious if any of these automated channels really are proving effective, or some of the new promotional channels, say through younger social channels like a Snapchat or others, that are actually proving effective at driving a younger demo.
So Snapchat is actually performing very well right now. And earlier there was some other talk about Snapchat. I think you were the one that mentioned it. Right now, Snapchat is actually only being targeted or used for subs, not yet for content. But we do have a Snapchat Stories channel, which again is kind of church and state from the work that we do on the acquisition front. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how different channels resonate with different audiences. Something like paid search is people actively looking for our product, and we see that the majority of like if somebody Google searches the Wall Street Journal, they have a higher propensity to actually come through and make a subscription. But we have a whole other branch of search terms that are all geared around content-related terms. So if somebody does do a search for markets news, we will surface, or hopefully will surface, in one of the top slots through Google. But we also break that out into student terms, and we can isolate people where they are in their life cycle, or where they are in their life, by demo targeting and specific keyword targeting. So it's a really interesting landscape of where we should be using different channels to hit people in their purchasing, like their purchasing behavior, their purchasing life cycle. Native, Taboola got a shout out before. We see different CTRs and we see different conversion rates through all these different channels, but we know that we have to hit customers where they are. We can't stay to the confines of something like a social media feed, and we can't stay to the confines in something like the Google search engine results page. We need to take our product off of those platforms and get them out through the industry. And an interesting exercise that we went through was a brand safety measure. And Google and these products have brand safety checks built into their platforms, but sometimes it's not good enough. And about 18 months ago, we had a blacklist in place that we're blocking all the sites that we didn't want to serve on through display and through native. But in cases like that, we found that it really wasn't effective enough, and we wanted to be proactive and not reactive. So if we saw a site come through and we were serving on it that didn't align with our brand values and was very like tabloidal or extreme on either end of the spectrum, we didn't want to be on that. So again, to be proactive and not reactive, we went through all of the sites that we had ever served on. We reached out to some of our industry partners to see what their networks were, and we went through about 50,000 different sites, and we pulled out about 12,500 that we deemed brand safe, and we added that to our whitelist. So it was really labor intensive, but there was a trade-off from saying, all right, well, we're just going to serve anywhere that our customers are, to we're going to serve where our customers are that we know aligns with our product. And I mean, it limits our reach if we go from the entire universe of all websites out there to that 12,500. Really limits our reach in terms of scale and efficiencies. But again, to be proactive and not reactive, and to ensure that our product is being placed on a site that we know it aligns with our values, with that time and that decrease in scale, we found that it's been worth it. So I don't know if I totally answered your question there, and I went on a little bit of a tangent. But
well, let me take, since you mentioned product, and I wanted to wrap this back around to where we started, which was product development earlier this morning. How, if at all, is this data driving editorial or driving product development to better understand what people where people are really finding value in the WSJ product, and is it moving them anywhere, working within the organization to develop new products to cater to that and focus on that?
So we don't want to dictate what our editorial team writes. We don't want to tell them, all right, well, this story did really well, write more about it. But we do have that data. We can see, all right, well, this story and this section is doing very well. But again, coming back to church and state, we don't want to dictate to our editorial team. We want them to be independent of our advertising. We want to advertise their products, not our advertising telling them what to produce. So we do have the data on what works well and what drives more conversions. But again, church and state, we kind of let them do their thing because our product to our customers, it's the most valuable asset that we have. So we want to keep doing what we're doing with that.
Alex, thank you very much.